Imani grew up knowing the world saw her differently. As a child, she didn't understand why her mother always fussed over her appearance before school. "You have to look perfect," her mother would say. "The world won't be kind." She shrugged it off, but the meaning became clear during her first grade art class. A boy whispered loudly, "Why is her skin so dark? Is it dirty?" The teacher, overhearing, didn't intervene. Imani sat quietly, tears stinging her eyes. Imani came home that day and asked her mother, "Is something wrong with me?" Her mother knelt down, holding her face gently. "Never let anyone make you feel that way. You are beautiful, Imani. Your skin tells the story of queens." But the boy's words echoed louder than her mother's comfort. At school, the teasing didn't stop. When she raised her hand in class, her classmates snickered. "Why bother? No one cares what she thinks," someone muttered. Each comment etched itself into Imani's heart. By middle school, Imani had learned to shrink herself. She spoke only when necessary, avoided eye contact, and tried desperately to blend in. But blending in was impossible. Her teachers often praised her for being well-spoken, as though they hadn't expected her to be articulate. At lunch, she overheard girls comparing skin tones. "At least I'm not as dark as her," one laughed. Imani wanted to scream, but she stayed silent, swallowing her hurt like bitter medicine. In high school, Imani's beauty began to attract attention, but not in ways that felt safe. Boys would make inappropriate comments about her body, reducing her to a stereotype. "You're exotic," one boy said, his tone dripping with something between fascination and mockery. When she rejected their advances, the insults came. "You think you're too good for me?" One sneered. She was either invisible or hypervisible, never just herself. The world demanded she fit into a box she never chose. In college, Imani thought things would be different. She enrolled in a sociology class, eager to learn about systems of power and oppression. During a discussion on racism, a white classmate rolled her eyes. "Slavery ended ages ago. Why can't people just move on?" Imani couldn't hold back. Because the effects didn't magically disappear, the room fell silent. The professor hesitated, then moved on, leaving Imani alone in her anger. It was a familiar loneliness, one she wore like armor. Imani's first job after graduation was in marketing. She was the only black woman in the office. At meetings, her ideas were often ignored until a white colleague repeated them. "Great suggestion," the manager would say, as though Imani hadn't spoken at all. During a team outing, a coworker said, "You're so lucky. Companies love diversity hires." Imani's smile froze. Her achievements, her hard work, they all felt dismissed, reduced to a quota. The words burned, but she didn't respond. Imani worked twice as hard as her colleagues, hoping her efforts would speak louder than their prejudice. She stayed late, took on extra projects, and earned the highest client satisfaction scores. Yet, during the annual review, her manager said, "You're doing well, but you could be more of a team player." Imani wanted to scream. She had spent months fixing others' mistakes and supporting her team, but her voice felt small against the unspoken rules of the workplace. One evening, Imani stood in front of her mirror, exhausted. She ran her fingers through her curls, free from the straighteners she used to conform to the office's unspoken beauty standards. She thought about her mother's words, "You come from Queens." But Imani didn't feel royal. She felt beaten down. Each microaggression, each dismissal, each stereotype felt like a stone added to a heavy sack she carried daily. She promised herself she'd keep going, even if her strength wavered. The breaking point came during a company presentation. Imani's project had been a success, but her manager presented it as his own. She sat silently as he took credit for her weeks of labor. After the meeting, she confronted him. "That was my work," she said firmly. He shrugged. "You're part of the team, right? It's all our work." Imani felt rage boiling inside her. She wanted to quit, but she needed the job. She walked away, her fists clenched, vowing to find a way out. Imani discovered a local support group for women of color navigating professional spaces. At the first meeting, she listened as others shared stories of being overlooked, undervalued, and misunderstood. One woman said, It's exhausting being excellent just to be treated as average. Imani finally felt seen. She shared her own experiences, her voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. The group became her refuge, a place where she could shed the armor she wore daily. Imani met Marcus at a poetry reading hosted by the support group. He was kind, thoughtful, and passionate about social justice. They connected over shared experiences, and for the first time, Imani felt like she didn't have to explain herself. On a date night, they were followed around a store by a security guard. Marcus confronted him, but the guard responded, "Just doing my job." Imani's chest ached with familiar pain. "Why can't we just exist?" she whispered. Encouraged by Marcus and her support group, Imani decided to speak out. She began writing essays about her experiences, blending personal stories with broader discussions of systemic racism. Her words resonated with readers, drawing attention to the daily struggles Black women faced. Online trolls flooded her inbox with hateful messages. "Stop playing the victim," one email read. Imani deleted the message and kept writing. She refused to let their hatred drown her voice. Imani's advocacy work gained momentum. She was invited to speak at conferences and workshops, sharing her journey and educating others on the realities of racism. Each speech was an act of defiance, a reclamation of her story. At T1 event, a young girl approached her. "I feel like you're talking about my life," she said, tears in her eyes. Imani hugged her tightly. "You're not alone," she said. For the first time, Imani felt her pain transform into purpose. Imani's voice began to ripple outward. Her workshops sparked difficult conversations in schools, offices, and community spaces. Some resisted, clinging to the comfort of